It was a cold morning in Suwannee County, Florida, December 4th, 1989. A phone rang inside a small family-owned tow company, Parnell Wrecker Service. The caller reported a vehicle broken down along I-10 near mile marker 273. For the Parnell family, it was just another routine job. But for 24-year-old Johnny Parnell, that call would become the last one he ever answered. Johnny wasn't just another tow truck driver. He was a husband, a soon-to-be father, a U.S. Air Force veteran, and the youngest of 7 children. Born and raised in Live Oak, Florida, Johnny grew up in a close-knit family that valued hard work, kindness, and faith. His siblings remember him as the one who could make anyone smile, a jokester, a dreamer, and someone who never hesitated to help others. His brother-in-law, Ronald Knight, once said, "He was a nice, helpful guy whether he knew the person or not." That selflessness was a defining part of who Johnny was, and ultimately it's what placed him on that lonely stretch of highway the morning he was killed. To understand the tragedy that followed, you need to know who Johnny Parnell really was. His family called him JP, a nickname that carried through his childhood. As the youngest of 7, he was adored and protected by his siblings, especially by his oldest sister Denise, who often described their bond as inseparable. Their birthdays were close together, so they always celebrated as a pair. He was the kind of brother who'd make everyone laugh, who'd bring energy to any room. But he was also focused, a good student, a dedicated athlete, and a young man with big dreams. Growing up in Live Oak, Johnny spent hours riding go-karts through his neighborhood. He'd zoom around corners laughing with friends, sometimes coming dangerously close to street signs. His sister Denise remembered one particular day when he almost crashed, and all they could do was laugh about it afterward. It was a glimpse into who he was, fearless, fun, and full of life. But Johnny wasn't just a playful spirit. He was also a man with direction. After finishing high school, he joined the U.S. Air Force, serving his country with pride. His time in the military taught him discipline, but it never changed his heart. He remained the same warm, approachable person he'd always been. By 1989, Johnny's life seemed to be on the right track. He was married, building a future, and preparing for one of the most important roles of his life, fatherhood. His wife was pregnant with their first child, and family members said he was overjoyed at the thought of becoming a dad. Denise later shared that his biggest goal was simple. He wanted to be the best father he could be. But everything changed that December morning. Around 8 a.m., the family business received a call for roadside assistance. A motorist had broken down on Interstate 10 and needed help. Johnny, ever eager to lend a hand, decided to take the call. What no one knew at that moment was that this act of kindness, something he had done countless times before, would lead to an unimaginable tragedy. A few hours later, 2 passers-by spotted something unusual on the side of the road near mile marker 273. A tow truck stood still, engine off, door open. Next to it lay a man's body. That man was Johnny Parnell. He had been shot in the chest while on duty, murdered while trying to help a stranded driver. Police arrived quickly, confirming the worst. Johnny was gone. The Parnell family's world collapsed in an instant. Johnny's mother, Ida, received the devastating call no parent should ever have to hear. She sent her other son, Charles, to the scene, carrying with him a jacket their mother had given him to cover Johnny's body. It was a small gesture of decency, love, and heartbreak. What had begun as a normal workday for a helpful young man had ended in violence and sorrow. Investigators determined that Johnny had been loading a vehicle onto his tow truck when the attack happened. He was likely caught off guard, possibly in mid-motion when the suspect fired. Detectives later found signs suggesting that Johnny may have fought back, leaving behind crucial forensic evidence on his clothes. But even with this evidence, justice would not come easily. For Johnny's family, grief came hand in hand with disbelief. His sister Denise recalled that the day of his murder was supposed to be one of joy. The family had planned a Christmas party that very evening. Everyone was supposed to gather, laugh, and celebrate the holidays. Instead, they found themselves planning a funeral. That's how life ended for Johnny Parnell. Not in a moment of recklessness or danger, but in a simple act of compassion. He died doing what he'd always done, helping someone in need. And though his life was taken abruptly, The love and memory he left behind would continue to guide his family for decades to come. In the days following Johnny Parnell's murder, the small town of Live Oak was blanketed in grief and disbelief. The news spread quickly. The youngest of the Parnell family, the one with the biggest heart, had been shot and left by his truck on Interstate 10. The Parnells had always been a close family, but this loss broke something deep within them. For Johnny's mother, Ida, it was unbearable. She had already endured hardships in her life, but nothing compared to the pain of losing her youngest son. She held on to faith, but every night she prayed for answers that never seemed to come. Johnny's siblings, especially Denise and Charles, struggled to process what had happened. Charles carried heavy guilt. He had been the one originally scheduled to take that service call that morning. When he got the call from his mother, he rushed to the scene, only to find his little brother's body covered with the jacket their mother gave him. For Denise, every detail of that day burned into memory. She had spoken to Johnny just hours earlier about the family's Christmas gathering. She remembered his laughter, the excitement in his voice, and then silence. What was supposed to be a joyful family reunion turned into the darkest night of their lives. Police investigators began piecing together what they could. The evidence at the scene suggested a violent confrontation. Johnny's body was found beside his tow truck. His tools scattered, the winch halfway extended as if he had been in the middle of loading a car. The fatal gunshot wound to his chest left no doubt. This was a deliberate act. Detectives believed Johnny had been approached by someone, likely the same person who made the call for roadside help. But something went wrong. Perhaps it was a robbery attempt. Maybe an argument. Maybe the killer never intended to let Johnny live. There were signs of a struggle. His clothing held traces that hinted at a fight. Fibers, markings, even possible DNA evidence. But in 1989, forensic technology was nowhere near as advanced as it is today. Investigators collected what they could, but time and limitations made progress slow. As the investigation dragged on, leads began to fade. Witnesses were scarce. The highway was long and the nearest exit miles away. Whatever happened that morning, it had unfolded in near isolation. The Parnell family found themselves trapped in a painful limbo, trying to grieve while still searching for answers. They had buried their son, their brother, their friend, but they could not rest knowing his killer still walked free. The family business, Parnell Wrecker Service, could not survive the emotional weight of Johnny's death. For Charles and the others, every ringing phone, every roadside call was a haunting reminder of that morning. The brothers tried to carry on, but soon after, they made a painful decision to shut it down for good. The wrecker yard that had once been a symbol of family and hard work now stood as a reminder of tragedy. Ronald Knight, Johnny's brother-in-law, said the incident changed the way he viewed the world. Before Johnny's death, he was the kind of person who would stop to help anyone stranded by the road. But after that day, he couldn't bring himself to do it anymore. "It's kind of hard to pick up people if they need help," Ronald said. "Unless it's a friend I know." For Denise, the pain was even deeper. Johnny wasn't just her brother, he was her best friend. His murder tore a hole in her life that time never truly healed. "I think about him every day," she said softly. "He even comes up in my dreams." She would dream of Johnny laughing again, wearing his Air Force jacket, the sun on his face. For a few moments everything felt normal, until she'd wake up and the silence would rush back in. For decades, the family has kept Johnny's memory alive through stories, through laughter, and through tears. They've worked to remind the world that Johnny wasn't just a victim. He was a person who gave more than he ever took. Even now, more than 35 years later, the pain hasn't faded. But neither has the hope. The hope that one day someone will come forward. That new forensic testing might finally reveal the truth. That justice, however late, will finally come for Johnny Parnell. Because for his family, remembering him isn't just about grief, it's about honoring the man he was. The one who always stopped to help, who put others before himself, and who gave his life doing what he loved most, helping people. The murder of Johnny Parnell remains unsolved, but his story endures, a reminder that even in tragedy, love never disappears. It lingers in memory and family, and in the quiet roads where his spirit still seems to live. Over the years, as time moved on and the world around them changed, the Parnell family's grief transformed into something else. quiet endurance. Their love for Johnny never faded, but the pain became something they carried, a part of daily life that never really went away. The early years after the murder were filled with questions. The family would meet with detectives, call the sheriff's office, and follow up on every small lead that came their way. Each time there was hope. Maybe this would be the call that finally gave them answers. But each time that hope would fade again into silence. The investigation had always faced challenges. It was 1989. No surveillance cameras, no cell phone data, and DNA technology was still in its infancy. What might have been solved in today's world remained elusive back then. The small pieces of evidence collected, fibers, prints, traces, were kept, but there was only so much the tools of that time could reveal. For decades, Johnny's name lingered in old police files, waiting for someone to return to it, and eventually, someone did. Project Cold Case, a nonprofit organization based in Jacksonville, began working alongside the University of North Florida's applied journalism class to bring renewed attention to unsolved murders like Johnny's. Together, they shared his story again, not just as a statistic, but as a human being, a son, a brother, a husband, and a soon-to-be father whose life was cut short. Through the project, new generations learned about Johnny. His story reached beyond Suwannee County, beyond Florida, traveling across states through articles, podcasts, and social media posts. It wasn't just about reopening the case. It was about making sure he was never forgotten. For his family, that visibility meant everything. After decades of pain, seeing Johnny's photo and story shared again brought both heartbreak and healing. It was as if the world was finally listening. Denise, his sister, spoke about the small things that kept his memory alive. His old baseball glove still tucked away in a closet. The family photos from their childhood, edges faded but faces full of joy. The go-kart stories that still made everyone laugh, even if they ended in tears. Charles, the brother who found him that day, carries a different kind of memory. One filled with guilt, but also purpose. He often says he believes Johnny would want them to live full, happy lives even after everything, and that's what they try to do. To laugh, to love, to remember. The community, too, has not forgotten. Live Oak remains a small, tight-knit place, the kind of town where people still know each other by name. Whenever someone mentions the Parnell family, there's a moment of respect, because everyone knows what they went through, and how much they lost. For Ronald Knight, Johnny's brother-in-law, the years have softened some of the anger, but never erased the loss. He was a good person, Ronald says. Just a good person who wanted to help. And that's what hurts the most, that helping someone is what cost him his life. There's a lesson in that pain, one the family continues to live by. To be cautious but not cold. To still believe in kindness even when kindness once led to tragedy. Every December when the holidays come around, the Parnells feel Johnny's absence most deeply. What was once a season of laughter and gatherings now carries an undertone of sorrow, but they still light candles. They still tell stories. They still say his name because for them, Johnny's story is not only about how he died. It's about how he lived, his laughter, his generosity, his sense of adventure. He may have been taken too soon, but he left behind a legacy that continues to touch lives decades later. As time continues to pass, there's still hope that someone, somewhere, might remember something, a detail, a face, a voice that could finally solve the mystery of what happened on that December morning in 1989. Until that day comes, the Parnell family holds on to each other, bound by love, faith, and memory. Johnny's story may remain unfinished, but his spirit endures, in every person who hears his name and remembers what he stood for. Because some people leave this world quietly, and others, like Johnny Parnell, leave behind an echo that never fades. More than 3 decades have passed since that cold December morning. But time has not erased the pain or the memories. For the Parnell family, every year feels like both a step forward and a step back. Forward because life goes on, but back because Johnny's absence remains a wound that never fully heals. Denise still speaks about her brother as if he were just in the next room. She remembers his grin, his energy, the way he could make the simplest things feel special. She keeps a small box of mementos, photos, notes, his military insignia, tokens of a life that once felt unstoppable. To her, those items are more than keepsakes. Their proof that he was real, that his life had meaning beyond how it ended. For their mother, Ida Parnell, the memory of that phone call from the police still echoes. No parent expects to receive news like that their youngest child, the one full of life and generosity, had been murdered while trying to help someone else. She lived with a kind of quiet strength afterward, holding her family together while grieving her son in silence. Those close to her said that even as years passed, every Christmas brought a visible change in her. Her smile would soften, her eyes would turn distant, and her heart would return to that morning in 1989. Johnny's wife, who was pregnant at the time of his death, carried both immense grief and the responsibility of bringing their child into the world alone. For her, every milestone their son reached was bittersweet, a reminder of what Johnny would have loved to see, the moments they were supposed to share together as a family. His son, who never met his father, grew up hearing stories, not just of the tragedy, but of the man behind the headlines. The stories painted a portrait of a man who was playful, kind, and selfless. Family members made sure he knew that his father died doing what came naturally to him, helping others. It became both a heartbreak and a source of pride. The investigation into Johnny's murder remains open, but cold. Detectives who revisited the case over the years have said, the file still holds evidence that could be useful if new technology becomes available. Some samples, once too small or degraded to analyze, may one day provide answers. The family clings to that hope. Local law enforcement still encourages anyone with information to come forward, no matter how minor it may seem. For families like the Parnells, every small piece of information could mean the difference between silence and justice. Despite the lack of closure, the Parnell family continues to celebrate Johnny's life. They gather on anniversaries, share old photographs, and talk about the way he lived. The laughter, the adventures, the good grades, the go-kart stories. Through these shared memories, they ensure that Johnny is never reduced to just another case file number. The people who knew him still describe him the same way, helpful, cheerful, and always ready to lend a hand. His kindness was both his strength and, tragically, the reason he lost his life. Yet those who loved him refused to let his story end there. Each generation in the Parnell family grows up knowing his name, his story, and his spirit. To them, Johnny represents more than loss. He represents the best of what it means to care for others. His life stands as a reminder that compassion, even when it leads to tragedy, is still worth holding on to. And so, his story continues to be told, not just as a mystery waiting to be solved, but as a testament to love, community, and resilience. For the Parnells, remembering Johnny is not about revisiting pain. It's about keeping his light alive, about ensuring that the man who died helping someone else will forever be remembered for the kindness that defined his life, not the violence that took it away. The loss of Johnny Parnell left an unfillable void, not only in his family but in the entire Live Oak community that had known him since childhood. People still talk about the way he would smile when helping someone, the way he'd drop everything to assist a stranger, and how his sense of duty extended far beyond his work. His generosity became both his legacy and the reason so many still mourn his absence. Over the years, the pain transformed into a quiet kind of strength. Johnny's family learned to live with the grief, not by forgetting but by honoring him in the small ways that mattered most. Denise still finds comfort in talking about her brother, recalling his mischievous side and the warmth that filled every room when he was present. She admits that some days the memories bring laughter, and other days they bring tears, but both remind her that her brother's spirit is still part of her life. His story became something greater than a tragedy. It became a lesson about kindness, service, and sacrifice. For those who knew him, Johnny's death changed the way they looked at helping others. Ronald Knight, his brother-in-law, admitted that after losing Johnny, it became hard to trust people the same way. The act of stopping for a stranger, once seen as simple decency, now carried a weight of uncertainty. Yet even through the fear, there remains admiration for the man who never hesitated to help. The Parnell family's resilience has been nothing short of remarkable. They have faced holidays, birthdays, and milestones without him, finding new ways to include Johnny in each one. Christmas, once the season of joy, will always carry a shadow. The day that took him away was supposed to be one of family celebration. Still, they choose to remember the love that defined that day before tragedy struck. The years have done little to dim the longing for justice. The family continues to hope that someone, somewhere, will come forward with the truth. Advances in forensic science have given other cold cases new life, and they hold on to the possibility that one day the same could happen for Johnny. Even after 35 years, the family refuses to give up. They know that closure doesn't mean forgetting. It means honoring his memory with answers. Today, when people hear Johnny's name, they don't just think of the way he died. They remember how he lived. They remember the go-karts, the laughter, the jokes, and the way he made everyone around him feel seen and cared for. He was a veteran, a husband, a brother, and a friend. His story stands as a reminder of the goodness that still exists in people, even when the world feels cruel. Denise once said she thinks about him every day, that he even visits her in her dreams. In those dreams, he's the same Johnny she remembers, smiling, full of life, and teasing her just like he used to. Maybe that's her way of keeping him close, a small piece of comfort in a world that still misses him deeply. The story of Johnny Parnell is not just about a life taken too soon. It's about the power of love that endures beyond loss. It's about a family that refuses to let his memory fade. His legacy continues in every act of kindness inspired by his name, in every story told around family gatherings, and in every reminder that true compassion never dies. For the Parnells, justice remains a hope. But love, that's something they already have. It's what keeps Johnny's spirit alive, even decades after that tragic December morning. His story, though marked by heartbreak, continues to shine as a beacon of humanity, reminding everyone who hears it that even in the darkest moments, love and remembrance endure. Even after all these years, the story of Johnny Parnell still echoes through Live Oak, Florida, a quiet town forever changed by one man's kindness and one senseless act of violence. His name continues to live on in conversations, in memories, and in the hearts of those who refuse to let his story fade into silence. Johnny's family has endured decades of unanswered questions. They've carried the weight of not knowing who took him away or why. But what remains stronger than the pain is their love, an unbreakable bond that continues to keep his memory alive. Every time his sister Denise smiles at a photograph, every time his son hears another story about the father he never met, Johnny lives again. This case isn't just a headline from 1989, it's a human story, a reminder that behind every cold case file lies a family still waiting, still hoping, still grieving. Someone out there knows what happened to Johnny. Someone remembers that morning, that moment, that sound on the highway, and after all this time, it's never too late to speak up. If you know anything about the murder of Johnny Parnell, no matter how small it may seem, please reach out to the Suwannee County Sheriff's Office or submit a tip through Project Cold Case. Justice can still be found, but only if the silence is broken. As the years continue to pass, the Parnell family remains united in love, guided by the memory of a man who lived his life in service to others. Johnny's story reminds us all that compassion should never be forgotten, and that even one act of kindness can define a life forever. His laughter still echoes through the memories of those who knew him. His selflessness continues to inspire those who hear his name. And though his time on earth was cut short, his light endures, steady, unwavering, eternal. This is not just a story of loss. It's a story of remembrance, of love that outlasts death, and of a family's refusal to give up. The story of Johnny Parnell deserves to be told, remembered, and one day resolved. If this story moved you, help us keep his memory alive by sharing it. Let his name reach as far as possible, because awareness brings hope, and hope can lead to answers. Thank you for watching this episode of Real Crime Pulse. If you believe every story deserves justice, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to support our mission of keeping cold cases alive, one story at a time. And remember, for the families still waiting, your voice can make all the difference.